Hey, if you're looking to reduce your property expenses, this is a conversation you do not want to miss. Today, we sit down with Chris Wise, and he shares how to take a look at the three biggest line items you have on your property. Not necessarily taxes and insurance, which certainly are important, but things that you can actually influence. Looking at your power consumption, your water consumption, and your property management expenses. Listen, if you want to save money, drive up that NOI, and create more value, check out today's conversation right here on Multifamily Insights. Chris Wise is a Navy veteran, former attorney, and the founder of Wise Capital, a property technology company focused on upgrading Class C multifamily housing with in-house AI, IoT, and data systems. Now, he combines real estate ownership with software development to improve operations and create better living situations for working class tenants. Let's welcome to the show, Chris Wise.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. Great to have you on. Listen, I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Take
Mhm.
2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah. So the quick scenario is, or synopsis is, joined the Navy right out of high school, went straight into SWIC, went through that pipeline, served 6 years in the boat teams, got out, went to law school, worked at a hedge fund, um, turned around, did what most of the attorneys do, opened up a firm, scaled that, ranging from 2020 till today. Opened a marketing sales agency focused on software development and implementation of AI back in 2023. And then started Wise Capital, which is what we're talking about today, here in 2024, where we focused on developing the technology throughout most of 24. And then today, acquiring different assets and properties.
Man, you got a really unique journey, man. You don't typically hear someone who is tapped into so many different industries, but you talked about your service, being in the
Mhm.
Navy. Thank you for your service there. We're recording this right after Veterans Day, so it's really timely. But thank you for your service there. Went to law school right after that. You don't hear that very often. Went to law school, worked at a law firm. Then you pivoted again to launch kind of a marketing and sales agency, now focusing on real estate, primarily C class assets in and around the Louisville, Kentucky market. So talk to me about kind of the different steps in your journey because, many of our listeners, you know, they want to change. They really want to get into multifamily because maybe they're tired of what they're doing in their day job. They want to get more financial freedom and take more control over their life. You've made multiple pivots throughout your career. Walk me through kind of your thought process in making those pivots, especially since they seem almost jarring, from the
Mhm.
military to a law firm to a marketing agency, now to real estate.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think everyone needs to have that North Star. I mean, for me, it was social impact. And so, that's what drove me to the military to start with. And then, even when I was working through the hedge fund, got into the law firm, it's the social impact. The law firm focuses on divorce, custody, domestic violence. So we deal with the difficult stuff. It's a difficult time in anybody's life. And, I focused on making enough changes to have that social impact in that arena, and then it's pain points, right? And so marketing and sales agency came around because of the pain point of dealing with so many different marketing and sales agencies that, I just realized that there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way for small businesses to scale without spending a fortune. It can't be, the moon to figure this out. And that's where I started learning how to code. That's where I started learning how to develop software, built that up. And then again, same with that North Star of the social impact. That's how we got into the Class C real estate space, and specifically the property tech side, where most companies here are focused on a specific environment, whether it be locks or cameras or security systems or property management software. They're in that space. And what I said was, if we can develop those products in house, those tangible products from locks, lights, cameras, IoT, all of that, and then also the software side of things and tracking a litany of different data points, then we can actually look at these properties like living organisms and treat property tech as that versus one avenue of, we just do locks or we just do lights or whatever. And so that's really how all of that got started.
Man, I love the way you think. You talked about, first of all, having that North Star for you, a social impact. That's what got you into the military. That's what allowed you to get into, working with the law firm and working through, family situations and continue to grow from there. And you mentioned when you get into the tech space, it was really because you were solving a problem that you were facing. Couldn't find marketing agencies and solutions that were fitting your challenges. So you went out there and ended up learning how to do this yourself, learning how to code, and ultimately ended up launching your own agency. Now you are investing in multifamily and taking that same software development, that technology into these properties. You mentioned these were like living, breathing organisms with the technology and being able to see what's really going on with the properties. Elaborate on that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we look at one of our properties, we start from the basic concept of just water and power, right? And so whenever we're looking at the expenses, and we're a value add company, so we're looking for something that's going to take some love to get it to where it needs to be. But we want to start with, water and power. And so we have the technology that we put into the property to track not just consumption, but also specify where leaks are. So we can tell from our technology not just what unit is consuming the most amount of water, but also if it doesn't match the average rates. And so we can tell, where there might be some loss there. And if it's a leak, it'll actually tell us not just, hey, unit 102 has a leak. It'll actually say, the toilet or the shower or whatever. So it kind of pinpoints us to where we need to go and send maintenance to figure it out. Same with power, we can track consumption. And these points, every penny matters. And so when we're looking at the Class C space and developing this stuff, really what we're looking at is, it's not that we're creating something that's never been created before. It's that the products that exist right now are so expensive that they just don't really make sense in that Class C space, not for that environment. And so by developing our own software technologies, all these things, we're able to keep that cost down in order to implement it and then improve and show that you can do this kind of stuff in a Class C space without breaking the bank.
Chris, a couple things there. One, you mentioned you start with water and power. Why do you start with water and power?
I think we find the most value up front by starting there. I think when you, especially in some of these older buildings, I know the one that we're tackling now is built in 1961. You really just you can look at the history, you can kind of look at insurance claims and tell what's going on, but you don't really get to see the the actual tracking mechanism of what every unit is doing. And even in the public space, when you have laundry or something to that effect, where you're trying to figure out, you know, are we using this the right way? Is this Are we actually consuming the way we need to? Are we finding that someone's turning the shower on and walking out and going to work and then coming back and the shower's still running? We're able to track these little data points to tell a bigger picture of, really, for lack of better words, I mean, the health of that property. And so instead of guessing at, hey, I think, this was built in 61, so it's likely it was, copper and all these other things, we're able to go, hey, we can actually track how this water's running and tell where the weak points are. And then from those weak points, we can get in front of what we call predictive maintenance, which is, being able to kind of jump that bell curve and tell what's going to be a problem that isn't right now, but it looks like, all the data is showing us that this is going to lead to something that we got to address now. And we do that same thing with HVACs, water heaters, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. Where our intent is to get in front of this maintenance problem that might exist, and then use what we have to figure out how we can improve it, fix it, or replace it in order to stay above what we need to be.
Yeah, and Chris, you're pointing out one of the biggest challenges with Class C properties, right? Some of these older properties is that they're older, right? Those mechanicals, those systems, the plumbing, like that infrastructure, as it ages, you just start to run into more and more challenges, and you don't know exactly what you need to replace. And most investors, especially value add investors, you're not looking to come in and just replace everything simply because it's 60 or 70 years old, right? So understanding and being able to identify where you need to pay attention, what exactly needs to be replaced, what is at the end of life, That's critical, right? I mean, that gives you a unique advantage in the marketplace if you can identify which elements may be close to failure and replacing that before it becomes a much bigger ticket item for you. Can you talk more about the technology and how you're able to implement that at your properties?
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of a litany of products there that we keep in house. But I mean, as far as predictive maintenance goes, if you look at what's available in the market, you have IoT sensors, and take away all the acronyms and fancy talk, and really what you have is a sensor that can tell you within a margin of error kind of the efficiency and life cycle of that product, whether it be HVAC, water heater, whatever. Now the benefit is you get that data and you're able to track where that product may be. Now, the downside to it is some of these sensors are $500 to $1,200. And so, again, in that Class C space, it's really tough to make that make sense when, what we look at is not increasing rents tenfold. We look at how do we reduce expenses as much as possible and then make this somewhere that people are proud to call home instead of, just being frustrated with the lack of communication and the typical things that you may hear with certain landlords. And so, our predictive model, what we do is we implemented technology that gets within about a 3% margin of error, which is something that I was comfortable with in saying, look, it's built, it doesn't cost us an ongoing fee. And if it gets me within a 3% margin of error, that's close enough for me to know whether this thing's about to go or whether we need to, do something or if we're okay. And we're able to tie that into different models and that would go into products like microwaves, fridge. I mean, you can just go on and on and on. The amount of data that is available right now, it's really just sourcing it and getting the appropriate checkpoints in order to make sure that you're within that margin of error. And it doesn't mean that it's 100%, but that's something that we live with on. All right, if it's telling me that we're at 98% of this life cycle, it's probably about to go. We need to start planning to replace that or figure out a solution there. And
Yeah.
so
Hey,
that's how
Chris,
we look at it.
I want to speak at a macro level and then zoom in because this is really fascinating. I've never heard of someone talk about the predictive maintenance elements in the detail or in the capacity that you are alluding to right now. So, first of all, let's back all the way up, right? What you're getting at a high level is really wanting to understand what's happening at your property. So, many people may be familiar with sensors like water sensors to see, like, hey, do you have a leak? Are you using too much water in one of the units? Most people or I'd imagine most people are familiar with more like toilet sensors where,
Mhm.
hey, do you have either a toilet that's running all day long and no one's flushing it, or do you have a sink that's running too long, things like that. You're talking about, hey, beyond just that, you've got your HVAC systems, your water heater systems, things like that, but then also getting to appliances and getting into microwaves and refrigerators. And I know on my properties that's been a challenge because you just never know. Microwaves, they just don't last like they used to last, right? So we
Yeah.
have a property that was a new property, and I think that first year, those microwaves were only 2 years old, and we replaced probably 10, 15%. And I just felt like it just kept going at that pace. And it's like, man, for new microwaves, this feels like they're being run through very quickly. Can you? I mean, not to go into weeds on some tech stuff, but like how are you able to identify the lifespan of an appliance? Like that seems like I've never heard someone talk about that before.
Yeah. And so, let's stick with kind of generalities and
Yeah.
talking about it from a holistic point of view. So if you look at let's use a fridge because I can talk about that a little bit easier than trying to name drop microwaves and messing it up. If you look at a fridge and you have a GE fridge, right? And there's different models, different sizes, different power capacities. All of that is public information. And unless you go out and buy the newest, greatest version ever that they just came out with a week ago, that would be the struggle because you wouldn't have the data points of, what does that life cycle really look like? Not that you have to buy old products, but after about 6 months to 8 months, there's enough data points across, the internet, across just the manufacturing disclosures that they provide that you can tell really where this life cycle is in essence. So we know, all right, this should last about 8 years. The power consumption should be approximately this. What is it actually pulling, first off? And so then we're able to look at what we track on the power side and see, is it actually pulling what we think it's going to pull, or is it pulling more? Is it pulling less? And all of that has an effect on that life cycle, and where we can determine, okay, this is actually aging a lot faster than what we expected. And there's various things we can look at to see if you can actually solve that problem, or the problem might just be, that fridge is gonna go out a little sooner than what everyone thought, right? Microwaves are very similar. There's so many data points to track, and there's a funny story. When I was developing this, I had to take apart a microwave. I didn't want to mess with the tenant's microwave, so I used mine at home and pulled that one out, took it entirely apart to see kind of the mechanisms behind how these things are built and how they run. And really, you're just talking about a computer. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's really what we're talking about. It's a computer that does one thing, which is, of course, heats up certain products, but it's still a computer, and those computers have chips, and those chips all have a life value. And those chips also, I mean, you can go and I think most people have seen this. I mean, most of them are run by those fuses, and those fuses are like 10 cents. And so when we look at it and we go, okay, well, it's pulling more power than it ought to. It's almost at the end of the life cycle. What goes first typically? The fuse. The fuse is literally like 10 cents. Could we just change the fuse, and what will it do to the power consumption? Oh, it puts it back where it should be, actually. So instead of just throwing out a whole microwave, we replace the fuse, check the data again, and it's like, well, we might actually get another 4 or 5 years out of this. Now, it's kind of a silly example with microwaves and fridges, but it's very, very similar in the effect that you have uh, these products, and each product has their own model numbers, and the amount of data that's available with that, it's just truly sparsing through the data to get an actual timeline or time horizon to figure out where the life cycle is. And then from there, it's just tracking those metrics to make sure, like I said, there's a little bit of margin of error, but how comfortable are you with that margin of error? And you may be wrong, to a certain degree. However, those sensors that go in there are typically, like I said, like $500 to $1,200. So for me, it's like, well, I can get a microwave for less than $1,200. I'm not going to put a sensor on there. Fridges is similar. Even water. I mean, water is really what can get you, because while they are cheaper, you tend to need a lot more of them. And so that's really where we stood back and said, okay, well, if we develop this and have the ability to source every product and every model number out there, then what does that save us in the long run? And are we still getting the data that we need in order to make these decisions and get in front of it versus, waiting for things to break and then getting the maintenance requests and then going in and trying to figure out at that time. Now we can jump in front of it and go, hey, I'm pretty sure this fridge is about to go out. We might have 6 months. Let's go ahead and replace it now, so that we're not having that call where, now the fridge is out and they have food in there, and they don't have a way to keep their food cold or frozen. And, and then that helps us on tenant retention when they go, hey, they're actually tracking this stuff. And, I could have had my fridge go out, and, now it's snowing and all these other things. And, what are we going to do then? Or a better example is always the heat during this time of year. Once it starts getting miserable and then the heat goes out, everyone's in panic mode trying to solve that problem really quickly. And this is a way to get in front of it, and get in front of it in a way that shows our tenants that, it's more than just numbers and revenue and NOI and all that, but we actually care about what you guys are about to experience. And this is what we are seeing. This is what we're trying to get in front of. And no, that doesn't change rent. We're going to have to replace this anyways. And, approach it the right way, in our opinion, I guess.
Chris, I love what you talked about, right? It's super smart just to go in and understand what's happening. Your point is there's a lot of public data available, but it does take a lot of work and effort to comb through it, to identify what's relevant, and then house it in a manner where you can understand what the implications are for your products and the appliances, the infrastructure that you have at your property. So it takes a lot of coordinating to make that work. Um, Is this something that's proprietary to you and your team, or is this something that you offer as a service to other investors as well?
So as of right now, we just have it in house, and the concept behind this is very similar to the smart doors that we're developing, and some of the lights and other things that we're building right now. And it's frankly working out the for lack of better words, the problems in house right now versus trying to go to market and force something that, while we've had a lot of success with it, there's still things I want to see improved before we actually provide that to the public for somebody who might want to use it to get in front of their own property. We're not very far off, I'll say that. But for me, it's got to check certain boxes before I start running IT tickets on things that I didn't think we would need to.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful, right? Just because I'm sure a lot of listeners are like, yeah, this is some of the issues that I'm facing at my property, so would love to have some help identifying what those solutions may be, and if they have a resource out there, that's great. One of the things you alluded to is just the price, particularly for Class C properties. A lot of these, whether you call them, smart home technology or, the prop tech that's out there, is just costly for a Class C apartment. If you're getting $800 in rent, are you really going to buy a $600 sensor and put, you need multiple sensors to put on every single piece of, pipe that has water, not even get into power and smart locks and all that other stuff. But that price tag can get really expensive really, really fast. So it really is cost prohibitive for most investors. But there are some solutions that you can put in place to help you save on these costs. If someone were looking to take maybe one or two of these steps that you have taken, where should they start? Like, if the most important thing or the biggest kind of savings that you have seen in your across your portfolio, what would that be?
Oh, while we're a property tech company, we're also a property management company in the sense that we're vertically integrated. We keep everything in house. When I'm evaluating these multifamily assets, I'm looking at expenses primarily before we even jump into what is market rent and where are they at comparatively speaking. Um, I would say the starting point is always the expenses from my own personal experience. And typically it's understanding the true cost of property management and what's being provided. And I've seen and spoken with a lot of property owners who, for instance, will believe that they're paying 6% in property management fees. And then when you actually go through, and maybe this is a better answer, is understanding the finances behind owning a property and not just getting a P&L or a balance sheet and everything's, in the black, so you're happy. Instead, actually understand where those numbers are. Because we tend to actually find that most of these property management companies are typically between like 12 and 15% in reality. And, those are different fees associated and put in different line items instead of the property management line item. But, I
Is that
think
including payroll or is that separate from payroll?
that's separate from payroll, is what I'm finding. I mean, what I see a lot of times is like, tenant retention fees and tenant acquisition fees, and then, tenant processing fees when it comes to payments of rent every month. And then they have the actual property management fee and then a travel fee. And when you start, looking at that and actually breaking them down, you're like, that's like 15% right there. That's not six. Um, and not to pick on the property management companies, there's definitely avenues where that makes a lot more sense than trying to do it yourself. We're fortunate that we have someone in house that does that for us. But I think the better idea is evaluating those expenses and seeing what actually makes sense and what doesn't. And then if you're already in the game and you already have the properties, it's looking at the things that you typically take for granted, right? And I know I've picked on water and power already, but that is something that I see quite a bit. Is why is why are you paying 40,000 a year in water? Where does that actually come from? Does anyone know if you're actually consuming that? And there's avenues out there and there's products out there that can help you evaluate what you're actually consuming without breaking the bank. I mean, some of the I don't off the top of my head, I can't think of the company, but I know some of them are charging $100 a month or so, and to evaluate just the metrics from a public information standpoint versus actually like putting in sensors and doing it that way. And while, it's not the best way to do it, it does give you a general idea of what is consumption and why is consumption that high. Uh, and then the other avenue, I would say, when you're looking at, one of the things I hate people saying, and it's a common saying, but this whole like lipstick on the pig thing, I think we've all heard that comment. It's not rare. There has to be a true return on that, right? And so what I see from a lot of people who start to get these apartments is the first thing they want to do is maybe paint doors or change the color of the countertops in the kitchen and that kind of stuff. And while that may be valuable in the sense of how it presents itself to a potential tenant, actually understanding like what are you doing to drive a return on investment on this, or does it actually make sense? And I think some of the property owners that I speak with, they're doing things that look good and feel good internally, but don't provide a value to the tenant. And so, a good example, one of the properties we just closed on, uh, they repainted the kitchen, they changed the kitchen cabinets, but then they didn't change the sink. So you have all of this material that looks fantastic. The countertops look great. The appliances are new, and then you look at the sink and it's a bathtub sink or a bathroom like sink in the kitchen. You're like, you did all of that, but you didn't spend $100 to replace the sink. And they're like, well, the cabinets look good though. It's like, okay, but you actually have to, I mean, I
Don't
guess it
look
works
here, look there.
once, but or they neglect the common areas. So what, again, I mean, one of the things that I look at is, I want you to be proud of when you come home. And that doesn't mean that you have to have, $1 million worth of construction type materials in an apartment, but it does have to present well. When you walk in, you don't want, carpet peeling and there's trash everywhere and the paint's half peeled and it needs to present itself well. Focus on the things like that versus we've replaced the shutters. And you're like, well, that's great, but I mean, once you got in, the carpet's torn back from the wall and there's trash everywhere and it looks like someone threw coffee on the wall. Like that's what you should focus on. And I know I'm going on a rant, so I'll dial it back a minute. But those typically what I'm saying as far as the technology goes. It just does have to make sense. I'm obviously a fan. We run a property tech company, so I'm a big fan of the smart products as far as locks, lights, cameras, that kind of stuff. But it does have to make sense. I mean, buying a $1,600 lock for an apartment that's rent is $900 a month doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you have a time horizon that's pretty expanded and you're looking at 10, 15 years, then you have that ability to price that out and see if it makes sense. But there's products available, and that's what got us into really that space of developing the tangible products was I was looking at a lock that I wanted to put into an apartment. It was $1,200, and I was like, I could build one that does 10 times better stuff. And I actually I was joking, but I said I can make a better lock for $40. And so that became the battle cry for a couple of months, and so I started building one, and I did. I came in under 40. If we manufactured it, it was like 17, and then that's what got us into just fixing the entire door and creating these smart doors and having that innovation and that creativity side where to me, I love it. It's like Disney. You get to dream it and then try to build it, and if it works, that's great, and then you can work on manufacturing that at scale. And if it doesn't work, you can keep costs low enough to where you're not breaking the bank by trying to implement something that you don't really need to do.
I love it. I love it, Chris. Great stuff there. And I love
Yeah.
how you talked about really, yeah, when you get into costs and savings, start with the expenses. And yes, we talked a lot about water and power, but think about the property management expenses too. Understand what your real cost is there. It's not maybe it's not just that 4.5, 5, 6, whatever, 8% fee. You've got, leasing fees typically, you've got application fees. I know we have like both technology fees and development fees, like personal development for them attending trainings and stuff like that. So it can certainly add up. So pay attention to that. Definitely pay attention to your water consumption, and then definitely understand what's going on with your big ticket items. I think it's really, really good information. I know a lot of value add investors go straight to what they can do to get rents, as you talked about, with the renovations, with the kitchens, the flooring, the lighting, but also spending just as much time thinking about what you can do with the expenses. That's going to make you a complete investor. Hey, Chris, for folks that want to learn more, the best way to get in touch with you is going to be on LinkedIn. So we're going to put a link to your page on the show notes so they can reach out and learn more about you and your company. Right now, we're going to take a moment and transition to our round of insights. When you think you found a great deal, asking the right questions could be the difference in finding a stud or a dud. Listen, we've put together a new guide to help you out. It's called 7 Questions You Must Ask Before Investing in Apartments. Now, in this guide, you're going to learn how to uncover red flags, quickly identify underwriting risk, vet sponsors and team members, and confirm key assumptions. Now, this is a guide that's going to help you be a better investor, whether you're an active investor or you're a passive investor looking to partner with other operators. Asking better questions is the key to identifying great opportunities. So download this free guide. Go to our website, casmoncapital.com/7 questions. That's the number 7 questions. And you can access this free guide today. To make it easy on you, though, we've put a link in our show notes. So you go to the show notes, you can click that link and access the guide right now. This guide's going to help you make better investment choices, asking the right questions to build your portfolio. So be sure to download it today. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
I would say this goes back to law firm days. This would be the marketing kind of falling apart. And so me looking into what it actually takes to market a service, and then that led to me building out a product, which led me to where I am today. But at the time, I had to learn how to code, I had to learn C++, Python, and get into what it takes to do this. But that failure was that was costly. That was, in the mid six figure ranges, that hurt bad. So that tends to make you move and learn real fast when you realize that something like that can happen, and what effect that has on not just your business, but the industry as a whole, and what you really are. And I say this quite a bit, we're in the hospitality industry, not, property or law or whatever. It's really hospitality. So when you look at it that way, you have to be the person that makes the most sense for that individual, whether it's, from a legal perspective, a marketing perspective, even real estate perspective. You have to be the solution to that problem. And to be that solution, you need to present yourself in a way that you can become that solution and show how you can be that solution, which means that most companies today are really digital companies. I kind of joke about this law firm, but you're really a digital company that sells legal services. You're really a marketing sales agency that sells marketing services. If the internet goes down tomorrow, how are they going to find you? And, I think when you really take that in, it'll open your eyes if you really take that in and think about it, because you realize how much we're dependent on this as small businesses. And so I'm trying not to go on too long a rant. This quick round is making it long round.
All good, man. I love it though. Great stuff there. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
I'm a big reader, so I stay away unless I'm working on a digital product. I would say, anything that is time sensitive. I have people who track my calendar, so I would say any kind of time tracking type device where you actually audit it. Having any kind of technology is great, but unless you audit why you're using it and why you're using it, you might as well just move on from it. And so any kind of time management, and that you implement whatever that product may be, making sure that it's actually giving you what you want out of it. The idea is to kind of buy back your time, not have another thing to drag you into.
Yeah. Speaking of books, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Yeah, I segued that like crazy. Buy back your time from
I knew the way you set up your last answer. I almost knew it was going to be Buy Back Your Time, which is a great book. I'm in the middle of it myself, and I love a lot of his YouTube content as well, but good stuff there.
Yeah.
All right, give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I'm an early riser. I get up at 4:30 every morning. I have that time between. I have young kids as well, so I have that time between 4:30 and 7 to take care of me. And so a big part of that is getting up, getting ready, working out, whatever. But then looking at the calendar, looking at the things that are going to affect my day, getting in front of it. I have a moment. Meditation or prayer, that kind of thing. But I spend a lot of time focused on me in those first few hours. No technology, read or anything like that. But get out of the computer for that morning hour and focus on yourself. And I think none of this works, regardless of the size and scale and where you're headed, unless you can take care of yourself. And so I focus those mornings every morning, including the weekends. There's no days off. You always get up, take care of yourself, set yourself up so when people get up and they need you, you're already at your best. You're not trying to get there because you're a little bit dragging from last night, or still trying to wake up and get out of that fog. You're already a couple hours ahead, and by doing that, you will be. I mean, by the time I hit the afternoon and people are trying to catch up, I'm already 3 days beyond where they're at. It gives you so much of an advantage.
Give me your number one insight for managing your expenses.
Ooh, I track everything to the penny. So, every day we go through accounting. I've got a couple companies, so I've got to go through and make sure each one of those is producing the way it should. And like any small business, I mean, you're going to have ebbs and flows. And so it's understanding where those are and when those typically hit, and then, what corrective methods and procedures you can follow to get it back on track. And so, for me, I think understanding in depth, basic accounting and P&Ls and balance sheets, but also understanding what the nuanced items are. And so, the little $2.56 charges that hit that nobody really thinks about, they add up. And so look at them and see what's going on, and why you're doing that. I know, I joke about it. I typically give everybody a $50 range. If it's under $50, just tell me what you did, but I don't need to give approval. Just let me know what happened. And that's a great method when you trust your team. It's not a great method when all of a sudden you start to realize that all the restaurant bills are $49. So you gotta keep track of it. But I would say, becoming obsessed with understanding where these numbers are and why, because at the end of the day, it all drives value somewhere. From a real estate perspective, that might be NOI that's going to help you on the resale value. Other industries, it's going to be a revenue number, and a net number that helps you on a seller discretion when you go to sell. So
I love it. Great stuff there, Chris. Last question. You are in Louisville, and you just kind of talked about restaurants a little bit. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, it's no one will know of it. It's a place called Kern's Corner. I don't know. It might be 150 square feet, but everything's made in the house. It's got the best home cooking, if you will, by far. But it's a tiny little hole in the wall, and a great place to be.
Kern's Corner, it is. Well, listen, Chris, great conversation today. I really enjoyed hearing about your journey, your background, and just really how you reinvented yourself, solving challenge after challenge that emerged in your life. A couple of takeaways. One, you're very meticulous on understanding challenges, problems, and solving them, tracking your numbers down to the penny, but really understanding how do you create value in C-class properties. Yes, you can always push rents, but it's more effective if you could save on the expenses, paying attention to your water costs, your power costs, your property management expenses. Those are going to be the three biggest areas for you to save and drive up that NOI. So pay attention to those line items. Again, if folks want to learn more, check out Chris on LinkedIn. We'll put a link to it on our show notes. Thank you again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.